Most people live their entire lives believing their thoughts are facts, their emotions are truth, and their mental patterns are unchangeable. They wake up anxious, overwhelmed, or defeated and assume that's just who they are. But here's the truth that most never hear. Your mind is not your master, it's your servant. The voice in your head isn't some divine authority. It's a machine that was programmed by years of experience, repetition, and influence. And like any machine, it can be reprogrammed. But until you understand that you're not your thoughts, you're not your feelings, and you're not your past, you'll keep living like a prisoner locked in a cell of your own making. The brain is a tool, an unbelievably powerful one, but it was built for survival, not happiness. It's designed to scan for threats, to remember pain, to avoid risk. That's useful when you're in a jungle being hunted. But in modern life, where most of our stress is psychological, this same wiring turns on us. It keeps replaying trauma, overanalyzing decisions, obsessing over outcomes, and feeding anxiety like it's keeping you safe. But you're not under threat. You're under the illusion of threat. That's the trap. And if you don't take charge of this machinery, it will run the show on autopilot. And that show often looks like burnout, anxiety, sleepless nights, panic attacks, and endless mental chatter. But there's a turning point, and it's this: the moment you realize that your thoughts are suggestions, not commands. Your brain is constantly making predictions based on old data. It's not telling you the truth. It's telling you what it thinks might happen based on what has happened. And when you react without awareness, you confirm the prediction. You reinforce the pattern. That's how chronic stress becomes normal. That's how anxiety becomes a habit. That's how trauma becomes your identity. But it doesn't have to stay that way. You can become the one giving the orders. You can retrain the way your brain perceives and processes the world. Start seeing your mind like a personal assistant. If you tell it you're overwhelmed, it will find every reason to prove it. If you tell it you're strong, it will start scanning for evidence of your strength. It's not about pretending things are perfect. It's about deciding who's in control. You are not here to be at the mercy of fear-based software running in your head. You are here to lead your life. You are here to direct the mind, to use its power, not to be consumed by it. That's the shift. You don't need to silence every thought or fight every emotion. You just need to recognize they are tools, and tools are meant to be used with intention. Most people don't know this, so they suffer needlessly. They become victims of mental autopilot, reacting instead of creating, surviving instead of leading. But the moment you step into the role of the observer, the one who can choose a new thought, a new focus, a new emotion, that's the moment you begin to change everything. So many people walk through life believing they're broken. They think something is fundamentally wrong with them because they can't shake the anxiety, the panic, the sadness, or the emotional scars of trauma. They compare themselves to others who seem more put together and start to internalize the idea that they're flawed, weak, or damaged. But that's not the truth. You're not broken. You're wired. Everything you're feeling, everything you're experiencing in your emotional and psychological world is a reflection of how your brain has been wired over time. And wiring can be changed. The brain is not a fixed system. It's a learning machine. It adapts, it forms patterns, it strengthens what it repeats. That's not dysfunction, that's design. When we experience trauma, stress, or prolonged fear, our brains adapt to survive. They learn to predict danger, avoid risk, and stay hyper, aware of threat, even when none exist in the present moment. It's like software written during a crisis that never got updated. So your mind keeps reacting to shadows as if they're real monsters. It's not personal, it's not permanent, it's programming, and just like bad code can crash a system, these old mental scripts crash your peace, your joy, your confidence. But once you understand that your patterns were created by repetition, not by identity, you start to separate who you are from what you've been through. The feelings of anxiety, panic, and dread aren't signs that you're failing. They're signs that your brain is doing exactly what it was trained to do. And that means if it learned one pattern, it can learn a new one. This is where most people get stuck. They believe their emotional state is a verdict, not a signal. But emotions aren't truth. They're messengers, they're data points. They're showing you what your brain has come to expect from the world. And the good news is, just like a muscle, your mind can be trained to expect something better. To see safety instead of threat, to find calm instead of chaos, to access joy instead of panic. It doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen when you commit to the process of rewiring. That means practicing new responses, feeding your brain different messages, and showing it, through consistent action, that it doesn't need to default to fear anymore. It means challenging the belief that you're broken and replacing it with the truth that you're incredibly adaptive. It means recognizing that your symptoms aren't signs of weakness. They're signs of survival, and survival isn't failure, it's resilience. If you're still here, still breathing, still trying, that's not broken. That's powerful. The wiring that once protected you is now holding you back. But the very same system that built those defenses can be guided into building something stronger, something freer. You can literally recondition your emotional reflexes, install new patterns, and create new emotional baselines. You don't need to escape your brain. You need to train it, direct it, upgrade it. It's not who you are. It's a tool you've inherited, and tools can be sharpened, improved, and mastered. When people hear the word neuroplasticity, it can sound like some complex scientific theory, something distant and academic, but what it really means is simple and life-changing. Your brain is not fixed. It changes, it adapts, it rewires. The way you think, feel, and react today is not locked in stone. It's shaped by habits, repetition, and focus. And that means you are never stuck. You are never permanently damaged by the past. You are not bound to stay anxious, depressed, or fearful for the rest of your life. Your brain is like a garden, and whatever you plant, water, and nurture will grow. The thoughts you repeat, the emotions you entertain, the actions you take daily, these are the seeds that shape your mental reality. For decades, scientists believed the adult brain was hardwired, that once you reached a certain age, your patterns were set forever. But that belief was wrong. Neuroscience has proven again and again that the brain is dynamic. It's constantly reorganizing itself, creating new neural pathways, pruning old ones, and strengthening the ones you use most. So if you've spent years reacting with anxiety, doubt, or fear, those patterns are strong, but they're not permanent. And they're not who you are. They're simply the result of repetition. The same way those patterns were built, new ones can be built too. If your brain can learn to fear, it can learn to feel safe. If it can learn to panic, it can learn to stay calm. If it can learn to see threats everywhere, it can learn to see possibilities. But here's the catch. It doesn't happen just by wishing for it. It happens by training. Just like going to the gym, rewiring your brain requires intention and consistency. You have to interrupt the old patterns, insert new ones, and repeat them again and again until the brain starts choosing the new path automatically. It's not about eliminating every negative thought or never feeling stress again. It's about building a new default, a mental and emotional baseline that serves you rather than traps you. Every time you pause instead of react, breathe instead of panic, reframe instead of ruminate, you're laying down new wiring. And the more you do it, the stronger that wiring becomes. At first, it feels forced, it feels fake, but that's how all learning starts. Even walking felt unnatural when you were a baby. Now you do it without thinking. That's how the brain works. With repetition, it automates. So the question is, what do you want your brain to automate? Panic or peace? Doubt or confidence? Scarcity or abundance? It's not about pretending bad things don't happen. It's about giving your brain better tools to respond to them. Neuroplasticity means your past doesn't have to dictate your future. Your trauma doesn't have to define your identity. Your emotional triggers can be softened, reshaped, even dissolved over time with the right strategies and habits. You have the power to become your own mental architect, not by force, but by consistent, intentional rewiring. One of the greatest myths about healing the mind is that it has to be complicated. People think they need years of therapy, a perfect past, or some kind of miracle to finally feel peace again, but the truth is far more empowering. Transformation doesn't begin with complexity, it begins with action. Small, consistent, intentional action, and the first step is to interrupt the pattern. Every emotion, every reaction, every moment of anxiety or stress is part of a neurological loop. Your brain senses something, reacts, reinforces it, and does it again. To change that loop, you don't need to fix everything at once. You just need to catch it, interrupt it, insert something different in the space between the trigger and the response. That might look like taking a breath before speaking when you feel overwhelmed. It might mean standing up and moving your body when the anxiety creeps in. It could be as simple as saying out loud, "This is just a pattern, and I'm choosing a different one." These moments may seem small, but they are powerful. Every time you choose presence over panic, awareness over autopilot, you're changing the wiring in your brain. You're telling your nervous system, we don't have to live in survival anymore. Next, upgrade your language. Most people don't realize how toxic their self-talk has become. They speak words that keep them locked in fear and limitation. I can't handle this. I always mess up. Nothing ever changes. These aren't just words. They're instructions to your brain. Your mind is always listening, always obeying. If you keep telling it that you're broken or stuck, it will find ways to keep proving that belief. But the moment you change your language, you start changing your reality. Replace "I can't" with "I'm learning." Replace "I'm overwhelmed" with "I'm in the process of becoming stronger." Words create direction. Speak like a leader, not a victim. Then come the daily victories. Progress doesn't come from massive change all at once. It comes from stacking small wins day after day. Maybe today it's getting out of bed when you didn't feel like it. Maybe it's going for a 5-minute walk. Maybe it's choosing a nourishing meal instead of reaching for comfort food. Each choice is a signal to your brain, we're moving forward, we're shifting, we're not who we used to be. These wins build momentum. They build confidence. They become the proof your brain needs to support a new identity. And perhaps most importantly, you have to feed the mind and starve the fear. Your mental environment is as important as your physical one. What you read, watch, listen to, and think about, all of it is shaping your internal world. If you flood your brain with negativity, drama, or constant stimulation, you'll stay stuck in survival mode. But if you protect your mental space, if you fill it with growth, truth, inspiration, and clarity, your mind will begin to calm, it will begin to expand, it will begin to trust that it's safe enough to heal. At some point in your journey, you have to make a decision about who you are, not who you were, not who life tried to make you, not who your trauma or your pain conditioned you to be, but who you choose to become. And that decision starts with shifting your identity. So many people try to change their habits, their routines, even their mindset, but they're still holding on to an identity that contradicts everything they're trying to build. You cannot create lasting transformation while seeing yourself as a broken, anxious, limited person. You can't build strength from a place of self-doubt. You can't create peace while identifying as someone who is constantly under attack. To truly retrain your brain, you have to begin embodying a new identity, one that aligns with where you're going, not where you've been. This isn't about pretending everything is perfect. It's not about faking confidence or ignoring pain. It's about choosing to define yourself by your potential rather than your past. When you say, "I'm anxious," you're reinforcing a label, but when you say, "I'm learning to manage anxiety," you're opening the door to growth. Identity is powerful because your brain wants to stay consistent with how you see yourself. If you see yourself as a survivor, your brain will look for evidence to support that. If you see yourself as someone healing, someone evolving, someone becoming unshakable, your brain will find ways to make that identity real. This is why language matters, but even more so, why the story you tell yourself matters. Your story creates your identity, and your identity directs your behavior. It's easy to believe you are your patterns. When panic sets in or stress hits, it feels so personal, but those are just reflexes your brain has practiced. They are not you, they are not your core. Who you are is deeper, more powerful, more resilient than any emotion or reaction. You are the one witnessing the storm, not the storm itself. And when you truly start to believe that, everything begins to shift. You stop seeing healing as something outside of you, and you start realizing it's something you generate from within. Changing your identity also means choosing new standards for yourself, not based on perfection, but based on alignment. If you want to be a calm person, start asking yourself, what would a calm person do right now? If you want to be someone who lives with purpose, ask, how does someone with purpose start their day? This kind of thinking rewires your brain by placing focus on who you are becoming. It gives your brain a new model to follow, not the old version built in survival, but the new version built in strength and clarity. You also have to surround yourself with identity reinforcement. Your environment, your circle, your habits, all of them are either reinforcing your old identity or helping construct the new one. If you're around people who constantly speak fear, negativity, and limitations, you'll be pulled back into that version of yourself. But when you immerse yourself in growth, in courage, in belief, you start to see yourself differently, you start to act differently, you start to feel differently, and eventually that becomes who you are. When you're fighting anxiety, PTSD, or any kind of chronic stress, it's easy to become consumed by the moment, to be stuck in the loop of what's wrong, what's missing, what hurts. But if you want to rewire your mind, if you truly want to shift your emotional foundation, you need something bigger than your current state to anchor to. You need a vision. Not just a goal or a to-do list, but a vivid, crystal, clear image of the life you want to live, the person you want to be, and the peace you want to feel. Because when your brain is conditioned by trauma or years of negative repetition, it's constantly scanning the world for what to fear. A powerful vision gives it something else to scan for, something to reach toward. Your mind works through repetition and focus. Whatever you focus on, you move toward. So if you constantly focus on what's wrong, what's lacking, or what's broken, your brain will amplify those things. But if you give it a compelling picture of what's possible, it starts to search for ways to make that picture real. That's the science of mental rehearsal. Athletes use it, performers use it, high achievers use it. And it's available to you too. You don't have to see the whole path, but you do have to see the outcome. What does peace feel like in your body? What does confidence look like in your actions? How does your environment change when you feel strong and centered? This vision becomes your emotional GPS. It keeps you aligned when the old programming tries to pull you back. Because the truth is, your brain won't give up its old patterns unless it has something better to believe in. That something better has to be more than words. It has to be felt, seen, imagined, and rehearsed in your mind like it's already happening. When you create that vivid emotional connection to your vision, you start to change the neural pathways that keep you stuck. You give your brain a reason to change, not just to escape pain, but to move towards something beautiful, and don't worry about making the vision perfect. This isn't about getting every detail right. It's about building emotional leverage. Because when your reason for healing becomes stronger than your fear of discomfort, you'll do the work, you'll show up when it's hard, you'll push through when the old thoughts scream louder, you'll act in alignment with where you're going, not where you've been. That's the shift that creates transformation. It's not discipline alone, it's desire fueled by a higher picture of who you can become. And the best part is, this vision evolves as you evolve. As you grow, it grows. But you need to start with something, write it down, speak it out loud, close your eyes and step into it, like a movie playing in your mind. Let it become real inside you first, because what becomes real inside eventually becomes real outside. That's how your brain works, that's how you reclaim your future, that's how healing becomes not just a hope, but a direction. There's a moment in everyone's journey where you realize that no one is coming to save you. Not because people don't care, but because the real work, the real transformation has to be done by you. That moment is where true power begins. Radical responsibility is not about blame, it's not about fault, it's about ownership. It's about standing in front of the mirror and saying, this is my mind, this is my life, and I am responsible for what happens next, and not for what happened to you. Many things were outside your control. But for how you respond now, how you choose to think, act, and show up going forward, that power belongs to you and no one else. When you take full ownership of your mental and emotional state, you stop waiting. You stop waiting for the perfect moment, for someone to understand you, for circumstances to align. Instead, you start building, you start acting. You stop giving your power to the past, to other people's opinions, or to the fear that lives in your head. You start becoming the creator of your experience, not the product of your environment. And that shift is everything. Because the moment you own it, you can change it. But as long as you keep giving your energy to external forces, you stay stuck in cycles you didn't choose but keep unconsciously reinforcing. Responsibility also means looking at your habits with brutal honesty. The thoughts you think every day, the routines you follow, the content you consume, the people you spend time with, all of it is either healing you or harming you, and no one else can choose those things for you. You have to become fiercely intentional about what you allow into your mental and emotional space. You have to audit your life and ask, does this serve my vision? Does this reflect who I want to become? If it doesn't, it's on you to change it, not overnight, not perfectly, but progressively, consistently, and without apology. There's a raw kind of freedom that comes when you stop outsourcing your well-being. You stop needing everything around you to be okay in order for you to feel okay. You learn to self-regulate, to center yourself in the storm, to be the calm in the chaos. That's not magic, that's maturity. That's leadership, and it begins the moment you stop making excuses and start making decisions. This doesn't mean being hard on yourself. It means believing in yourself enough to act. It means saying, if I don't like how I feel, I'll change what I focus on. If I don't like how I'm living, I'll change what I'm doing. If I don't like who I'm becoming, I'll change how I show up today. That level of agency is where healing accelerates. Because healing isn't just about what you've been through. It's about what you choose to do with it now. Every time you choose responsibility over reaction, you build trust with yourself. You prove that you're not powerless. You're not stuck. You're not broken. You are capable, even in the face of challenge. That's how confidence grows, not from perfection, but from the repeated experience of showing up for yourself when it would be easier to hide. When you take ownership, you gain momentum. And when you have momentum, even the hardest days become part of your progress. Everything you've felt, everything you've fought through, and everything you're still facing, it all points to one undeniable truth. You are not powerless. You are not broken. You are not at the mercy of your past or your pain. You are the author of what happens next. Your brain is not a prison. It's a tool. Your emotions are not enemies. They're signals. And your challenges are not curses. They are invitations to rise. The science is clear. The stories are real. The transformation is possible. But only if you decide here and now that your healing is your responsibility, your peace is worth fighting for, and your future is too important to leave in the hands of fear. You retrain your brain by showing up. By choosing new patterns, by breaking the loop, by claiming a vision that pulls you forward. This is your call to stop surviving and start designing. You get to rewire. You get to rewrite. You get to rise. And the world needs that version of you, clear, calm, courageous, and fully alive. Now is the moment. Don't wait. Lead yourself.